My name is Tommy Frank. I'm the Executive Director of the Lake Wales Arts Council. There's been a lot of people who have influenced the Lake Wales Arts Council over the last 50 years. What we wanted to do with this video series was capture some of those legacy voices so that we could have this wonderful record of their experiences with the Arts Council.
Yeah, I first got involved with the Arts Council because of acquiring an interest in this place and what was unique about Lake Wales. The first exposure, and this was when we came to town shortly after 1966, and Dick Pope, the original Dick Pope, he was a senior then, but he was a showman. He was the guy that created Cypress Gardens, Esther Williams, the movies, and all that sort of stuff. He came to town and gave a talk, and his talk was kind of unique with his exposure to Polk County all those decades. He characterized every town in the county. And then he came to Lake Wales. So then I'm sitting forward in my seat. Well, what about this town we have come to live in? Arts and culture. That was his characterization of Lake Wales. He went on about Bach Tower. I'm sure the high school marching band, which was famous, had a lot to do with it. And then from then on, I had a sort of an interest in what was happening with the arts. And it was at the very kind of beginning, a lot of the stuff, beginning of the organized visual and performing arts that were done with the Arts Center. And the people who stepped up, just remarkable collection of people. And very talented people. Of course, we had start with Bach Tower and the Carol and Noor, really international capacity there. And things moved along. They moved along steadily, but there were a core of people who were interested in quality. And they were insistent on it. The Carol and Noor, of course, key to that, but others as well. And Marilyn Newell, Mary Combs, Milford Meyer, of course, and then Mike Cruz came as a lawyer in the firm that I was in. He was a real sleeper. I had no idea of his artistic talents. I knew he was a wonderful lawyer, an absolute machine gun when it came to turning out legal documents, and smart as he could be. One story about Mike, this is pretty early. He had an idea. He was a singer. He not soloist, but just loved music. And he was going to put together Handel's Messiah for the community. I heard of it and I said, okay, well, the guy knows a machine gun at turning out legal documents. And there was a preparation period and they were doing things, and I wasn't really familiar with all the stuff that was going on. Learned that he had put together the church choirs and some of the best talents in all the church choirs. And it was a diverse group. And so the time came for the performance. It was in the Methodist church. I said, okay, well, I guess I'll go see what they do. And there they were, seated up there in all formal chorus gear, like almost like tuxedos and everything. And then at the right moment, out comes Mike from the side, the conductor. Tux, acknowledged the crowd, raised his little baton here, and it sounded, I was blown away. It sounded like the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. I still get emotional about it. What in the world? I mean, that was such a display of talent. It was beautiful. One of the solo voices was his wife. And it was just magnificent. And as far as I know, that was the beginning of the Lake Wales Chorale. Because after having pulled that off, there was the idea to perpetuate it. So then you start to have a full range of the arts here. Because, I mean, look at Bach Tower, the music there, the visual art, architecture, ironworking. It just is a very unique and varied artistic experience to go there. I think of it as an outdoor cathedral. And from that sprung a lot of other things. The Lake Wales Marching Band from the 20s was just excellent. And there was a director, Otto Kroschauer, who I didn't realize until afterwards. He was Miami recruited him away, and he was the director of the Miami High band that was our big rival in Miami. And they had a dynamite band. And the successor there, Tom Bishop. I know my law partner and good friend, Kent Lilly, he had a story about people saying to him, boy, you've come a long way. This going through law school is really a grind. He says, piece of cake compared to being in Tom Bishop's marching band. And Tom, his wife wrote the alma mater. Tom went to the football coach, and the football coaches lined the field. He said, let me line the field. And he lined the football field. Those lines were straight. Those lines were what his band depended on to have their straight lines. And Kent says, you didn't just put your foot on the line. You had to put your heel on the edge of the line, and the line went under your instep. That's the way you did it. And then the inspections for the uniforms, what your uniform had to be. He says, law school was a piece of cake. My wife, Jean, was interested in the arts. She was interested in the community. We had 4 kids. She was really busy. She was the bookkeeper in my law firm for almost 30 years. And we never had any kind of bookkeeping or any kind of a problem. Her bookkeeping was flawless. She and our neighbor, almost next door neighbor, Mary Craig, got involved in what the Arts Council was doing and realized in the early days of all this, there was no headquarters. I mean, this was all being done in living rooms, and then events were organized and they occurred at the event site, but there was no arts center. And they worked quite a bit together, and Jean was the chair of the arts, the board, Arts Council, a couple of years. Mary was, and then each of them were chair of the art show, and they really accomplished a lot. The art show, I will never forget, it was called the Lake Wales Sidewalk Art Show. And it was the sidewalk in front of the new public shopping center. Southgate had opened up, and that was the first time we had anything other than downtown. They had opened up, so a lot of attention is showed to that. They wanted to have a place to exhibit visual art and attract artists, and I don't know, the first one might have had 10 or 12. And they were just lined up on the sidewalk in front of the stores. They got permission to do that. And that was the beginning of the thing. And they kept after it. Jean was involved with that also. And then we did the downtown improvements. I happened to be the chair of the Lake Wales Downtown Development Commission. And in 1973, we completed those improvements, which got national recognition and in a White House ceremony in Washington. But within a year or two, they had outgrown the sidewalk in front of Publix and came downtown. And then it really expanded. Interesting that our art show was one of the attractions, and one of the characteristics of it was hospitality. They really took care of the artists. They had little trays, these attractive women, little trays with coffee on them, come to the thing. They were just very concerned about the artists and their comforts, and the artists really appreciated it. It was only a one-day show, so they had to set up in the morning early, and they wanted to make that as pleasant as possible. And then they have groups to help them break down at the end of the day. So that was our characteristic. And then when the art show became really successful, it started to outgrow the space we had downtown, and parking was an issue, and other activities on downtown unrelated to the show. So eventually there was this kind of controversial and events or chapter where figuring out, because there was a desire to go to the lake. And at that point, that was not really a focal point for events so much. It was just to enjoy the lake, and there had been a kind of a center there that was termite ridden, and it was cleared off. So finally decided to take the art show to the lake, and there it became very successful. There were times, Mary Craig got to know half the artists personally, and it was, and the whole idea of hospitality continued throughout. We had happy artists, and it was a juried show, and we had as many as 120 there. And that was the way artists in those days sold their art, personal in show. We're not talking about internet, stuff like that. And so they came. We had Winter Park and a couple of other places were sort of premium shows. We worked in between those and got a lot of those artists in our show. Mountain Lake, good support. We had purchase prize set up, and I did have something to do with that. And breakfast for everybody who had contributed to these advance purchase sales for the art. We knew that the big deal was the artists are going to come, they need to sell. And we put an emphasis on that. And Jean was key in a lot of that. She was kind of the hospitality queen, and Mary Craig was the one who did set up a lot of stuff for the artists. And the hospitality extended to those who were supporting the show with the purchase prizes and the main prizes. And we brought to bear finances into the art show so that the artists knew that they were going to have sales. And just got to be very, very successful. And then when the Catholic Church had a new home, and Fran Updike, who was devoted Catholic, all her children went to Notre Dame, by the way, and she had a lot of children, and was instrumental in the Arts Council or group, whatever it was called at that time, acquiring this building. Okay. I've been asked about how the campaign came about, how this facility, the annex to the original building, occurred. And it started, of course, when the building was acquired. So now it needed help. And the only way to do that is with money. And by this time, Bill Dickinson had come on as, and the arts organization was supporting a full-time person. And Bill had been with Bach Tower as in their charitable fundraising capacity. But his real interest and talent was in performing art. And this place appealed to him, and he left Bach Tower to come here when this whole idea was in its infancy. And he started bringing in talent for performing art events. And and we had to have the money to provide the facility to have these events. And so, of course, Jean had been involved, my wife, and Mary had been involved. And my history was I had been on the University of Florida Foundation, and I was chair of the Major Gifts Committee there for the first big campaign that we had. So I had some experience in the method, techniques for fundraising. And so they came to me and said about the campaign. I said, well, I think we can do it. But there's a method to it. It just doesn't happen. And so they were on board with it. And actually the four of us, Bill Dickinson and Jean and Mary Craig and myself, We planned the campaign, and then we put together a whole group of wonderful, wonderful folks as a campaign committee and spread the interest and the commitment and went through the process. We went through the process quite successfully. And we weren't sure about an addition to the church. The first thing was to rehabilitate the church. But we were so successful that the reality that there might be an annex, a gallery like this, and classrooms might really happen. Unfortunately, at this point, Mike Cruz contracted cancer, and we lost him. And he had been one of the really pioneers of an organized arts council, and certainly on the performing arts part of it. And so it was around Mike, which I thoroughly enjoyed being a part of, that this campaign occurred. His family stepped up big, and the community rallied. Mountain Lake was wonderful. They were very interested in a high level of performing art, and Bill had already exhibited his ability to make that happen. And because we did have the church for those performances. And we went through the process as it should be in a well-organized campaign. And the final thing was when we reached the end. There are two things about the end. One was we had a kind of an announcement thing with a lot of folks all there. And we started out with placards with numbers on them. And you started out with the dollar, then the 10, and then the hundreds of dollars, and moving up. And then the big deal was when that one came out, and it was 1 million in front of the 355,000 or whatever it was. And we had all across the stage, we had all this numbers, and the people holding the placards were the people who had played the big roles in the whole thing. It was thrilling. It was a big deal. Community achievement, remarkable. And and the second thing that is not well known is a decent amount of these were pledges for the future. And something that occurred that, to my knowledge, my experience with some campaigns had never occurred in other campaigns. People from Lake Wales paid 100% of their pledges. It was just remarkable. Those are the two big things of that very successful campaign. Oh, well, and then we built the building. And at the dedication of the building, I was really taken aback when Bill Dickinson composed something he called Fanfare for Robin. And here was this brass group, and they played what he had composed, and he gave me the sheet of music. Golly, that was really an honor. I really appreciate it a great deal. I've got the sheet of music. I don't know how to read it, but I really appreciated it. I've given a lot of thought to the long term for the arts in Lake Wales, and it's been easy to give thought to it because it's so much of a presence here in town. Just recently, the chorale was just a knockout. Golly, I can't get over the talent. And the involvement now, Warner University is just a real strong component. But as far as the long-term future is concerned, I go back to Dick Pope. He characterized arts and culture for this place. And my plea is stick with it. It's a great theme. It's a great advantage for a community like ours to have that emphasis. It stands so much for quality, the quality of life, the more than just meat and potatoes. It's the aesthetics, it's the fine things of life, the things that really bring personal happiness to people. We've got it here. Let's build on it and make it better and follow what Edward W. Bach said. And the mission is now the mission statement for our city government. Wherever your lives may be cast, make the world a bit better or more beautiful for your having been there. That's a good mission for all of us, individually and collectively, and that's my hope and my prediction for our community in the future.